It's extraordinary to think that it's already a year ago. I remember particularly the military side, actually, which I thought was fantastic. And my favorite story really is the fact that the garrison sergeant major lined everybody, all the troops, all the street liners, and all the people who'd come from the Commonwealth, everyone who'd taken part outside in the garden of Buckingham Palace to salute the King and Queen when they returned from Westminster Abbey. And everybody thought it was a fantastic idea, with one notable exception, the palace gardener. But apart from that, of course, we had the actual rite of coronation, which means to say, in a way, it was affirming the king. I mean, he became king, obviously, on the 8th of September 2022. But this time, he had been by this stage consecrated and anointed and crowned. And so that was the final step to, creating him as a new head of state. And of course, before and indeed after that, I think he was really relishing his new role as a head of state, because it meant that he could go and talk to other heads of state one-to-one in a way that wasn't quite possible when he was Prince of Wales. I mean, it sounds funny to say that, but I think he was much more respected as a head of state. And then, of course, sadly, he sort of found himself confined to base with this illness. They were incredibly well received, and they travelled in a comfortable coach, and then they travelled back in the Gold State coach. It was all absolutely magnificent. There was wonderful music. People came from all over the world. There were huge crowds everywhere. And yes, they were both extremely well received. And I think it was a very popular and a very happy day. I think that they've been seen to do a good job in the year that followed. It was always going to be difficult following Queen Elizabeth II, because she'd been there for such a long time and she was, in an extraordinary position. But yes, they have done a good job. But I think you'll also find that there's a certain element of sympathy in this surge in popularity, because, the king, just getting into his stride, suddenly found himself, with a cancer diagnosis, and of course the Princess of Wales also, so that the two really most, in a way, almost most, as obviously the Prince William and Queen Camilla are very prominent too, but two of the most prominent members of the royal family had disappeared from view, and most unexpectedly. And I think there's a lot of sympathy towards them for that. And also, of course, a lot of respect for particularly Queen Camilla, who has stepped into the breach and been not only the public face of the monarchy, but you can be sure doing a lot behind the scenes to keep him going and keep his spirits up, which is all a big part of getting better, as you know. I saw him on Easter Day, which was the first time that he came out, and he looked incredibly animated, and he was meeting members of the public after the Easter service at St. George's Chapel. But then subsequently, he's been out again, and he's been at a cancer clinic, and we saw a lot of that, of him talking, of course, as of being a cancer victim himself, and so a huge amount of sympathy for the people in the clinic. And hopefully we'll be seeing him again in public. I've always stressed that, if for one reason or another he just doesn't feel up to it one day, we must absolutely understand that. The key thing is that he must get better. When he told us that he was going in, for his prostate examination, he's been very, very open about what's been going on with him. He was able, when he went on that visit, to share the sort of feelings that you get when you get a big shock when you're told you've got a cancer. You don't know, it must be very, very, very depressing and worrying, and then, of course, now we've got a bit of good news for a change, and he's out and about again, and so his visit to that clinic will indeed have given a lot of hope, not only to the people there, but for other people around and about who are watching in, I think. One of Prince Harry's greatest achievements has been the Invictus Games, and so it's good that he is continuing to support that. I think that is very important. Interestingly, if you think about it, the Invictus Games was designed partly to make people who had suffered terrible injuries in wartime, make them feel not at all sorry for themselves, but to feel very positive about their lives and what they could achieve and going forward. What is rather sad with Prince Harry, of course, is that he himself sort of paints himself as a victim. I mean, everything which is completely opposite to the spirit of the Invictus Games. But given that he's coming to London, obviously a very good opportunity for him to meet his father. And I obviously can't predict what will happen, but I would hope that they will have a chance to meet, because every time they meet and every time they see each other is a step forward towards reconciliation. And that has to be a good thing. In the past, I think we have seen things put up on websites and sending greetings and so forth. But I hardly need to tell you that there's been a certain amount of difficulty between the two families, and Prince Harry wrote a very disagreeable book, and they've been in various television programs, sort of hurling javelins in the direction of the British royal family, the King and Prince William and Princess Catherine, and so forth. And so. I don't know whether what you read in what you read into all that, but I tell you what I think has been brilliant, even if there hasn't been a positive public statement about the birthday. Certainly, the King has never responded in any way at all to any of the jibes that have been made by Prince Harry, and he's left the door wide open for him. And I think that's the most positive aspect of the whole thing. I think Prince William is much less forgiving than his father. I think he's really, quite angry at the way things have turned out and the various, well, if I use the sort of betrayals really of his brother. And also, of course, Prince William has got an awful lot in his mind, and in a way you could argue he's got more important things to worry about. And if your father is ill, that must have, been something which becomes more concerning. But also his wife Catherine is not well, and he has a young family, and his priorities really are looking after her, looking after them, and managing all that. And personally, if I was him, I would be putting my brother on the back burner for the time being. The British public are not at all impressed by the various things that have been coming out of California, by which I mean the Oprah Winfrey interview, the book Spare, a Netflix series, and other remarks directed against the British royal family. So I'm not at all surprised that over here her popularity has waned. And I think you'll find, I'm in America at the moment, and I think you would find probably that her popularity has declined quite a lot over here too, because people basically, good-minded people don't like people insulting their families and particularly their fathers. Guy in a farm somewhere in Middle America, he hears about Spare, and he sees what's been said about the King by his son, and he doesn't like it. It's just, you just don't do that sort of thing. So I think there's I'm not at all surprised that the popularity has waned, and I don't think she is going to be very keen to return to British shores in the immediate future. I think everything's back on track. The problem is, of course, that there are so few of them. There are so few. They invented this category called the working royals, and there are very few actually active working royals at the moment. You've got the King and Queen. You've got Prince William. The King, of course, is only I mean, he's working behind the scenes, so I think we should include him in that, but he isn't out and about as much as he would like to be. You've got the Edinburghs, Edward and Sophie, and you've got the Gloucesters, and you've got Princess Anne. And that's really it. Well, the Duke of Kent also doing a certain amount, Princess Alexandra, his sister, not doing anything at the moment. So there aren't very many working royals. So they are all having to pull their weight in a big way and rally round and do as much as possible, because people do still want the royal family. So I think the upsurge in popularity is, as I said before, partly based on sympathy, because it's not their fault that they got ill. It was very unexpected, and really sort of curtailed some of the good things they were trying to do as at the beginning of this new reign.